Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. This is episode 120, and in this one, we're going to do something new. We're going to try something a little bit different. I am going to share with you a live coaching call that I recently did in my private community of web designers, which is called my Web Design Club. If you're not familiar, I launched this private community and this kind of mastermind style club at the end of 2020. And since then, it has become, I kid you not, the most amazing little corner of the internet. It is, I mean this in all honesty, it is filled with the most amazing collection of like-minded, helpful, and encouraging web designers, web business owners, and web entrepreneurs. It really has become the most incredible community I've ever been a part of. And something we do every week is I do a live Q&A or coaching call. And I wanted to share that with you in this episode because if you've heard about my Web Design Club, maybe you've thought about it, but you're not sure of the value or what it's like. I wanted to share with you something we do every week. So in this call that you're about to hear, it's interesting because we cover a lot of different topics. And what I did more recently is I sent an email out to all of my members and I just asked them how their business is going. And I also asked them what their biggest challenge was. And what was really interesting was I got a lot of the same feedback and a lot of the same struggles and challenges. So that's what we address in this live coaching call. In this, there's 5 main topics we cover. We talk about finding new clients and what to do when your leads are dry. That's number 1. Number 2, we talk about content marketing and authority building when you're thinking about doing content like blogs or videos and how to have a right strategy for content for clients versus white label partners that might want to hire you. And speaking of white labeling, that's number 3. I share some thoughts on white labeling, the pros and cons, whether it's for you, how long you should do it. Number 4, we talk about proposals and conversion rates and how to actually get people to land or actually move forward from a proposal so you're actually landing clients and not just sending a lot of proposals. We also talk about conversion rate percentage, what it should be, even though there's no right or wrong. I actually found that really fascinating. I think you'll enjoy hearing that too. And then finally, we talk about the problem that I guarantee you have right now or you have had recently, and that is scope creep and content collection. A lot of thoughts on that. I've talked a lot about all of these subjects on the podcast, but it was really fun to cover a lot of it in an hour. And again, this is just one perk of being in my Web Design Club. This is something we do every week. I want to extend an exclusive invite to you to join my Web Design Club because I want to get to know you. I want to hear about your business. And if you didn't already know, another benefit of being in the club is you and I will have a private messaging thread. So you can actually talk to me ongoing. I message all of my members generally every day, and I love it. I love going deep with my members, and I love getting to know everybody's businesses and helping them. And actually, one of my members actually sent me a little email because she recently went full-time in her business, and she had this to say, and I just wanted to highlight this. This comes from Sandra. She says, I'm currently over 3 times more profitable over where I was last year at this time. I can't even tell you how awesome having the support of the club has been. If I had to attribute one thing to my growth, that would be it. It changed my entire mindset and the way I approach things. So that was just a little snippet from one of my members, Sandra, who's killing it with her business after recently going full-time. And I want to do the same for you. I'm telling you, you're going to get to meet Sandra and you're going to get to talk to me ongoing. You'll also meet another member in this call who comes on briefly, John. And I would love to do this with you. I'd love to be your guide on a deeper level. And you can do that by joining my Web Design Club. I have an exclusive offer for you. If you're watching or listening to this, just go to joshhall.co/120. Speaking of, in this call, if you're listening to it on podcast, we do go over some stuff visually. So just bear with me as we go through some visual stuff. I do have the video version of this up as well on that post. So just go to joshhall.co/120. There'll be an offer for you to try out my community, to join the club, see what you think, and see if it's a good fit for you. And then you can watch this as well. And as you'll hear in this episode, I should note, I had the wrong mic selected, so I'm actually talking out of my AirPods. So audio isn't the best, but hopefully it's good enough for you. But this is a look at what we do every week. So if you like this and you think, man, I would love to do this every week, you can join my web design club with the special offer and promotion I have for you in the post for the podcast. And I can't wait to do this with you and learn more about you and your business. And for right now, enjoy this live coaching call, and hopefully you get some value off of my thoughts and hearing from other members in this call. Enjoy. All right, guys. So let's talk about these 5 things. If you just joined us, I had sent the email out the other day about getting some messages, and I wanted to hear how things are going. And I did ask about your biggest challenge. There were some recurring ones. Number 1, finding new clients, landing them once we get them. Number 2, 3, white labeling. 4, authority building. And 5, scope creep. So let me give you some thoughts on these. Obviously, I've talked a lot about all this stuff in podcasts and courses, but I want to share with you guys some commonalities that I'm finding mainly with you guys, with other members as well. So finding new clients. If your leads are dry, the biggest thing that I've found to be first of all, the most successful thing you can do is not freak out, because if you start freaking out, you're going to appear desperate, and then everyone's going to sense that. So take a deep breath. If things are a little bit dry or you're low on clients, again, like I mentioned a little bit ago, you're not alone. I want to make sure you know that. You might see other people selling or sharing their successes and wins. I don't want that to inspire you. I don't want that to make you feel bad about yourself. So you're not alone. But first things first, take a deep breath. Don't freak out, because that's the worst thing you can do. If you freak out and then you start doing all these strategies out of desperation, it's not going to work, and you're going to waste your time. You're going to feel worse about yourself. So deep breaths, it's all right. But here's the biggie. More than likely, finding new clients is really a matter of, you just got to get out there. And there's so many ways to go about that. There is the in-person kind of stuff, which luckily, I think most everywhere now, in-person stuff is opening up pretty much everywhere, at least stateside. I don't know what it's looking like in Canada right now. But like, I went on vacation, everything's back to normal. Everything was wild. Traffic was crazy. Alabama traffic in summertime, not fun. But luckily, I say that to say, networking groups, Chamber of Commerce, meetups, any sort of in-person stuff is booming right now, more than likely. So I know it's getting out of your comfort zone, but the reality is, and this is an important thing to remember, if you are running your business and you don't have somebody doing your sales, you're the salesperson, whether you like it or not. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's all good. And I do want to encourage you to get out of your comfort zone. And you will be so surprised if you do, even if you go to a networking group and you don't land a client from that or make the best connections right away, you'll be amazed at the momentum you get from just going out and doing something. It really does go a long way. And I'm a social person. I like people. However, I always felt very daunted going to a group I didn't know or a networking group. Like, I still get those jitters and butterflies when I go into a group. I was really shy growing up, and I had to work through all that, and doing a lot of networking and kind of, getting out of my comfort zone helped me with that. So I want to encourage you to do that too. When it comes to finding new clients, you just got to build momentum one step at a time. I will talk about doing more authority building stuff shortly. Actually, let's talk about that next. I think this could be a good transition. So finding clients, there's the in-person stuff. There's obviously all sorts of online avenues with helping out in Facebook groups. Obviously this club is a great example. Other type of forums, and then any other, whether it's free or any sort of premium groups or memberships to just network and make more connections. That is the biggie. You really just have to get yourself out there in as many ways as possible. So I'll talk about authority building next, with like producing content, because that's really content marketing, which is going to lead to the other thing I was going to talk about, which is SEO related. I know a lot of you are focusing in on SEO type of tactics to get your services out there, whether local or in different type of, it could be location based or service based, depending on where you are and what you're targeting. That's always a good way to go too. Those of you who've been through my SEO course, you know the hierarchy of the pages and how to set up your service pages, and you can't absolutely do location style pages. I'll show something real quick. I've showed this before. I think some of you guys have seen this.
But if you're interested in doing SEO for lead gen, our colleague my colleague David, who's actually in the club as well, his brand he grew 100% SEO. He did not do any networking, very little in-person stuff. And a lot of it came down to this. If you notice, see right here, there's Via Forge Digital Marketing Agency in Columbus, Ohio. Well, if you notice, if you scroll over his logo, it actually turns into a mouse, which means this is a link. And this is a little hidden SEO trick if you guys are considering building out SEO pages. If you create a link because you notice there's no locations in here. There's services, but there's no location pages. Well, there actually is a link on the homepage that directs you to Web Design Ohio. And then all this stuff is crafted towards SEO. And you'll notice if we scroll down here, there's service areas that take it even further. So there's Columbus, Ohio. There's Dublin. There's Grove City. This is where I am. There's Hilliard. There's New Albany. So if we hit New Albany, you'll notice it's very crafted. H1 Web Design Agency serving New Albany, Ohio, blah, 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 blah. And then if we look through this page, it's all, design-wise, it's fairly standard. It's basically just text. And then there's service areas here that you could do with a global section. If we look at the Grove City page, you'll likely see the same layout. It's just switched out with different text and stuff. So I'll drop this in the chat for you guys. If you haven't seen this before, I showed this in my SEO course and a couple other places as well. But yeah, so Michelle said, sneaky. I've used footer links, but this is a new one to me. Wow, something new, SEO from Michelle, hot dog. So yeah, that's a good example. David knows what he's talking about. Now, good question, John. Are they worried about duplicate content? Doesn't seem to be a problem with that. I mean, that's definitely something to consider, but I think as long as you customized it enough to where it's not exactly the same, you'd be all right in that case. Now, what I would say, and John, I know you're doing this in your case with your site at Graphic Kitchen. I know you're working on more location basic stuff or location specific pages. What I would do is just customize all of that to that location where possible. So for example, you might have the beginning of a page that's more like, let's say, Grove City, for example. If I were to do this, I might have something similar, but I might have more like Grove City specific stuff if possible, even imagery. And if I worked with an agency or if I worked with a business from Grove City, I would highlight them here. So like, here's how we help this Grove City business with their website, web design Grove City kind of stuff. And then what I would do is I would have our services be global, like a global section, and then a service area like this be global as well. So you could really just customize. And look, this probably looks really overwhelming. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by this. So what I would do to keep it simple is focus on like 6 areas and then build something like this that's a little more location specific. I would probably add a little more flair to it with imagery of Grove City, although it's hard to find images of a city that are copyright free that don't look like crap. But get creative with that. And then ideally, if you've worked with clients in that area, highlight those and then have everything else be global. It's really a fine way to go. Now, if you have some highlighted services that you do want to change like, for example, relationships that serves Grove City, Ohio, change it in here. But again, you could have some global areas that are just standard. And that way you only change it once in the global library and then it goes to the rest of the pages. So, and then Steve said, John, Google has said they really don't care about duplicate content. Yeah, so I guess I haven't looked into that too much. I think it's probably safe to say you don't want to have pages that are going to conflict with each other. And Michelle can probably shed some light on that. You don't want to have, because at the end of the day, I think duplicate content, while it is a bit, I'm not going to say it's shady, it can be sneaky. The trick is, though, you don't want to have pages conflicting with each other, which is where this matters. So if you are going to have, and I think where like Web Design Agency Grove City versus Web Design Agency New Albany, the trick is, even though it's structured the same and it looks the same, if I search New Albany, it's going to look a little bit different. Hopefully you guys can, I don't know if you guys can see this here. Albany Web Design. Hopefully you guys can see this here. All right. Let's see. If we look at New Albany Web Design, VF Forge is still first page and they're not even doing that much. So that's a good example of how that can look. So did I put that in the link for you? Did I put that in the show or the chat for you guys? Yeah. So check out VF Forge. That's a good example. I don't want to get too far on this tangent, but if you're going to do some SEO related lead gen, that's a great way to go. Now, let's talk really quick about authority building, because a couple of you have expressed interest in doing like videos and guides and tutorials. And obviously, I'm going to encourage you to do that for every reason you can imagine. I think that's really, really valuable. You're going to grow as a communicator. You're going to build your authority. You're going to improve your communication skills, everything. Everything's going to be great. However, I do want to say this. Remember this. Content marketing is one of the most time-consuming things you'll do as far as sales and lead gen. It does take a lot of time. Like, I can put a tutorial and videos together pretty quickly now, but why? It's because I've been doing it since 2017. So it is going to take you some time to speed up your processes, and there is lighting. And if you're going to do camera or just screen share, keep it simple at first for sure. But there's going to be some more time involved with that. So I would say, if you're going to consider doing any sort of authority building through content marketing, great strategy. I'm going to hit another point on this, but heads up, it's going to be a lot more time consuming than it would be face-to-face relationships. You can go to a networking group, as awkward as you may feel or as uncomfortable as you may feel, and you may make a really good connection in the person that you drive with, and you may get a job right away. And I say that in confidence because I have done that. And even if you don't land a job right away, you might meet somebody who knows of somebody who actually, they need a website or they need some help. And then you'll likely get referrals more organically, a little quicker in person. So in person is always generally the fastest ROI. The content marketing stuff is great, but I do want to say this too, as kind of a follow-up to content marketing and authority building. If you're going to do that, make sure you are very, very, very intentional about your strategy. And I know Adela's not on the call with us today, but she would back me up in saying this. If you're going to do content marketing, because this is what I experienced early on when I started blogging. I started blogging and then I published it. And then first of all, I was like, there's 2 views. That's a bummer. Well, I didn't get it out there. I didn't build an email list. I didn't share it. I shared it on social media once, but what I didn't realize and what I didn't think about was that my clients don't care. My clients are busy running their own businesses. They are only going to watch a YouTube video or read a guide if it is extremely important and beneficial to them. So if you're going to do content marketing, which I do encourage you try out if you're interested, if you're going to do it for clients, you got to be really intentional about what their biggest challenges are. Shocker, it's going to be SEO. It's probably going to be about the top. It's going to be about conversion-based design. And it's going to be about probably some sort of client nurturing or things they can do with their website to boost sales. Those are probably going to be your main topics you're going to want to hit on. Now, the cool thing about that is you can talk about all sorts of stuff that you're learning here in the club and in courses and elsewhere, and you can share what you've done with other clients in those veins. So just heads up, I don't want you to create a tutorial about Divi thinking about that getting a client when they're not going to watch that. They're not going to care. Now, this does segue us into point number 3, which I'm going to move white labeling up to white labeling, because if you're designing sites right now and you're just wanting to partner with some other agencies, and I know this is really popular with a lot of you here right now, there's a lot of awesome relationships blossoming in the club where some of you are focusing on the business and the sales, and some of you are just, you're earlier in your journey, so you're doing more design and deliverables and fulfillment. If you do or if you do content that's based around more web design specific stuff, that will help big time with white labeling. So all that to say, let's try to not make this confusing. If you're looking for clients for your business and you're growing your business, the face-to-face stuff, networking, chamber of commerce's groups, meetups, all that stuff is huge. Those are going to be some of the best things. SEO is a great way to go as well. You can do some in the groups, but in the groups, it's more like Facebook groups and stuff like that. It's more than likely that you're going to dive into more like white labeling territory, which is fine as well if you're doing the design and fulfillment. So with content creation, that is what's going to help you the most. If you're really just hunting for more actual website jobs where you build the website and partner with folks who are doing the sales, then content marketing is what I would recommend doing first. That's going to be great. Now, if there are WordPress specific meetups or Divi meetups and stuff like that, awesome. And of course, this club, like we're all networking with each other. But as somebody who is going to hire somebody to design their sites, I'll just put it to you like this. When I started hiring Jonathan and Christian and some other folks, I want to know where their expertise is. I want to see a website that has a little bit about them and their expertise. And if they had any sort of authority building videos or guides or content, that's the key. Because whether they feel like an expert or not, even if they just share what they know, it's gonna look like they have expertise and some confidence. So all that to say, if you're going to be interested in doing white labeling for other businesses, just to get some more money, get some more jobs, and get more experience designing and building websites, content marketing is a great way to go on top of utilizing the network here in the club and then Facebook groups and stuff like that. So that are my thoughts on white labeling. However, white labeling is generally not going to be a long-term career unless you just want to design websites. I think most everybody here are web entrepreneurs. So I do want to say, and I know some of you who are hiring folks in the club are like, oh no, Josh, don't tempt them to, build their own business because I love hiring them. But I want everyone here to really think long-term. So if you're going to be doing white label for other folks in the club and other agencies, just remember, use that experience. But the problem with white labeling is that they're likely not going to be in your portfolio. They're not going to be adding to your hosting or recurring income. It's really more of a short-term type of game. I think you can actually make a lot more money in the short term white labeling, because if you charge $1,000 for a website, you could get 5 of those for a white labeling client and make $5,000 right there. Whereas if you're building your own business, it might take a little bit longer to get there depending on the project. You can get projects quicker because you're not doing the sales and the actual project management often. Which, by the way, if you're going to be doing project management while you're doing white labeling, that's got to be accounted for as well. I learned that the hard way when I started subcontracting for other agencies, because when I did that, the first couple of projects were like, I just did the design. I didn't talk to the client. But once they found out that they felt comfortable with me talking with the client, then all of a sudden I became a project manager. And then I was like, whoa. This is a different ballgame. I'm going to need more on my cut if I'm going to be doing the project management. So some thoughts in regards to white labeling, but just remember the strategy behind all that. If you're going to be doing authority building and content collection, either for actual businesses versus white label, 2 different strategies. Businesses do not care about Divi tutorials. All they care about is how to set up Google, how to get better SEO ranking, or how to set up their Google My Business. Chris is here with us here, Christopher. He's got some resources coming soon. And Chris, I'm super excited about your upcoming course. I remember we did a strategy call a while back, so I cannot wait to hear how that comes together. But just remember that. What are business owners focused on? The quickest ROI. They're busy. They're not going to be likely learning on YouTube, whereas web design agency owners are going to be much more likely to see content like that and feel good about it. So some thoughts on that. All right. Let's talk about converting leads, number 4 here. So I'm not gonna call anybody out, but I have talked to numerous people in the club here who have said to me they've had a lot of leads come through the door and they haven't closed, and they've had a good strategy session, or they did a proposal and they didn't close. Inevitably, when I ask how many of those how many proposals have you sent out? It's generally 2, 3, or 4 proposals. And I'm going to tell you this right now. That is not enough to judge yourself or feel down about yourself, or it's not even enough to measure the data. What I would say is you need 10 proposals to go out, and that's what you should judge your metrics on. So if you have 3 people that you sent proposals out to and none of them moved forward, well, join the club. That was nonstop. I had so many people pass on my proposals. Sometimes it was, I could have done better in the proposal process, sure. But a lot of it was they were just money people who they had 1,500 in their mind and that was it. And sometimes people are capped by their position. Like if they're working for a company and the company says, all right, you got $2,000 for the website, unless they can convince the higher ups to invest more, that's it. You got $2,000. So some of that's the case as well. Sometimes they're just stuck. They might want to work with you, but financially can't unless you can provide something on that level and build a relationship and nurture it and do things in phases. Sometimes it's not a great fit, and that's fine too. And sometimes you might be charging too low. I've talked about, what did I talk about in the last Q&A where there was one project that I quoted $2,000 for, and I felt like that was a lot. Well, they ended up going for an $8,000 quote because I severely underbid it and I severely undervalued my services. Kind of glad I didn't get it anyway, because it probably would have been a nightmare at the level I was at that point. But I say that to say, your proposals might not be going through because you might not be charging enough. So there's all these different reasons why something might not move through. Do not feel down on yourself if you get 2 or 3 that don't go through. That is the way, that is what it is, what it is. It's going to happen. Now, do you want your conversions to go up over time? Sure. But that's where I found judging by 10 is key. So get to 10 proposals. If 10 people all passed you up and didn't move forward, and they were good qualified leads that you were really hoping for, then we got some work to do. We need to refine the proposal process. I think most of you have moved through my business course. You see the way my proposals work. My way isn't the right way. It's just the way I always did it. But adding personalized videos with that, really nurturing that beginning part of the process and making a client feel at ease and getting them excited to work with you, that is key. So all that to say, judge yourself on 10. 10 is the metric, because you cannot judge yourself on 2 or 3 proposals that don't go through. I had one person say one time that they just weren't finding any leads and nothing was closing. And I said, how many proposals did you send out? And they said 1. And I was like, keep on going. You could be the best designer, salesperson in the world, super charismatic, energetic, you have great pricing, great service, and somebody might pass you up for whatever reason. So don't let that discourage you. Get to 10 and reevaluate from there. If the conversion rate is under like 30% or 40%, you got work to do. Now, some people I know, is Eric on the call with us here? Yep, Eric. So Eric, you mentioned, what was it, Mike Mikhalowicz's team, when you were doing some coaching with them, said like 20% conversion is good, because if you're doing more than that, you're charging too low. I find that a little interesting. I'm going to say 40. 40 is what I would shoot for. I think that's, and look, when you're early on, even 4 out of 10 feels like you're getting, you're failing most of the time. But I guess it depends on where the lead is as far as being qualified as well. So I think if you're at a really high level, sure, 20% is probably doable when you're charging 5, 10, 15, 20K. However, if you're charging the typical 1,500, 2 to 3, you're going to want to get, I would say, over 20. I'm going to say you want to get at least 40. So 60, 70% is great if you're at that range. 40%, I think you're all right. But you also don't want to be spending too much time on 10 proposals and only to have 4 go through, although that's probably going to even out right there. So I would say on that note, Chris says, shoot for 100. Yeah, baby. If you're getting 100%, then yeah, your prices are too low, guaranteed. So that's the other thing too. You should expect not to get every project. So I want everyone to remember that too. If you are getting every project that comes through the door, something ain't right. And you're probably not charging near enough, or you're just getting, 1 a month, which can be fine too, actually. So you don't want 100, but you don't want 0. 20, I would say you would really have to have your systems in place to where you're not spending that much time in the proposal process. For 20, shoot for 40-ish. So Eric said, he said we need to raise our pricing 20% over and over until we get pushed back and drop below the 20% close rate. All right. That's right, Eric. I remember you saying that. Probably a good method to have. Although if you're just, again, I would probably on the lower end, if you're just earlier in the journey, I'd say that 40% is probably a good range. But the same idea applies as far as doing more and more until you get more and more rejections, and then maybe keep your pricing in a certain range once you find your sweet spot. So that's my thoughts on the landing them as far as actually converting them. So hopefully, I know we're just scratching the surface on some of this stuff, but I just wanted to share some initial thoughts. All right. Scope creep, our most favorite topic that we all talk about. This is funny because I think pretty much everyone who messaged me said this was a problem, getting client content, having projects be hung up. So I'm going to remind everybody of a podcast I did with our man, James Rose, who's also in the club, founder of Content Snare. I'm actually going to try to get him to do a monthly training for us with some of this stuff and a little more advanced. I'm going to post this in the chat for everyone. If you haven't heard this episode or if it's been a while, even if you already listened to this, this is one of the most valuable podcast episodes that I've done, I think, as far as like some of the best, like, oh, yes, content collection. This episode is all about collecting content from clients, and James shares some absolutely great keys to expediting the process. And here's really what it comes down to. When it comes to scope creep, it's always going to be an issue and a struggle. Why? Because you're working with people. I had some clients that were incredible and super organized. Like I've said this before, I'll say it again. I loved working with military people because they were like, they were by the books. They loved structure. They wanted guidelines, and then they did it on time. And they probably got up early and did 100 push-ups and ran and sent me content. It was awesome. However, there's the other people who are just, they're scattered themselves. So first things first, what I would say is you're likely going to get a feel for somebody pretty early on, potentially even before you send a proposal. I'm going to tell you right now, I would have a little hidden line item in your proposals for content collection. And it's kind of what I call the pain in the ass. It could be a pain in the ass in any part of the project, but I kind of knew if somebody was a little disorganized and I kind of felt like they were a little all over the place, I knew there was going to be more hand-holding through the process. So I would just charge more knowing that. It's something to consider. And that's kind of one reason I don't recommend standardizing all projects, because not only are all projects different, but all people are different. So you might work with this military gal who's like really structured, sends you content. And you might meet with this other gal who is, she's free. She's maybe in a health and wellness industry or something. And she's all over the place. So you just never know, So I would definitely consider that in the beginning. You'll likely get a feel for that early on. Just trust your gut. You'll probably know whether this is going to be a big problem or not, because that's going to help during all this. But that said, when it comes to actually tactically getting content more efficiently, there are some things that and this is tough, because if you're like me, you want to be a nice person. You don't want to make your client feel like you don't want to make things feel daunting on them. You also don't want to make them feel like you're a Nazi trying to get stuff. But at the end of the day, for their benefit and your benefit, you got to get stuff on time. So this is where that episode is really going to help you out with setting limitations and constraints and guiding them through the process. I can't tell you how, like when I created some videos on how to use Dropbox and how we use Basecamp, and I stopped repeating myself over and over and over and over again and just made it a video and just had it in the process. That was number one. That was the key. That was the turning point for me with collecting content, because it saved me time instead of guiding somebody through every step of the way and just having that there for them. You still get questions. You'll still have people who are like, what's Dropbox? So you're still going to get some of that, but that's going to save a lot of time. So processes first, as far as collecting content, standardizing how you get your content. If a client is sending you stuff via text at 2 a.m, don't take that content. Email them the next day during business hours and say, hey, just let you know, we have to collect content this way in order for us to do this project. And this has to go within our system and our processes. This is how we do it. Here's the resources on how to do it. That's a big key. I think that's something that's overlooked by a lot of people, because, and this does depend on the type of project. If it's a project with a ton of images and videos and a lot of different content, it's got to be structured. If it's a portfolio site with just maybe they send 10 images, I generally was pretty lenient on that. Like there were some cases where I had a website where maybe they just had a few images that were custom and they would email it to me. That's fine. Like I'm not going to make them go through the entire process for something that's 100 images on a site versus something that's 3. So there is some leniency there depending on the project. But when it comes to that, you got to have those processes in place. And then as far as scope creep itself, because I've found the reason I wanted to talk about content collection a little bit, content collection, is it kind of leads into scope creep. Generally, if you're having scope creep problems, it's either revisions or content collection. you got to set your limitations. And those of you who've been through my business course, you've seen my contract where we actually have in there, these are the deadlines, these are the stipulations. And if it really comes down to it, as awkward as it is, I've never had to actually like charge anybody or penalize anybody, but you can reiterate the point that this is a problem, and this is in the contract. We need this by this. And here's where you could take a couple different measures. You could have some sort of penalty or an upcharge, which again, I don't care for as much, but it's almost a good way to like, not war. It's kind of a warning. It's just a heads up, like this is going to be the next step if we don't get this in time. Or you can let them know, as James talks about in the episode, if we don't get this by then, your project is now on the back burner and it's going to be delayed even further. And there's going to be an upcharge later on or something like that. So that can get some clients to move forward as well. I know John had some recent, hey, John, are you open to jumping on just for a couple minutes to share? Because I know you had a project that you finally got the content from the client, the construction guy. Cool. I'm going to have John jump on real quick because I think this is really, really beneficial to hear kind of what John did, because it was a bit of a different approach. John, what's happening, man?
What's up, brother? Give me time to comb my hair and.
Yeah, I was just hoping you had a hat today and you had your
look presentable.
Well, hey, man. So yeah, you went through this, like it was just about a month ago that you finished that project up 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, it actually just wrapped up.
So construction guy, he was a great client. I remember you saying he was an awesome client, really
Super
nice guy.
Yep.
But what was the problem? It was getting the actual content, right?
It was actually securing the content. He said to me, pretty much right up front, he goes, "I'm not a writer. I'm going to have real trouble with this." And I tried to be encouraging to him, because he told me the story of his business. That was part of my discovery process, was to hear him talk authentically about what he was doing. And he went on for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to record this conversation and there's your content, right? Let's start right there. Like, that's a great place to start. And he got kind of thoughtful about it. And he actually ended up writing all his own content. So whether it turns out to be profitable from an SEO perspective or not remains to be seen. But it sounds like him. You know what I mean? And
I think that's great, man. Well, remember, because I've talked about that with testimonials. Like if a client is terrified to send a video, if you just record a call with them and ask them what they thought, and then you record it and they're open to you using that, boom, there you go. Yep. Same thing can be done with content collections. And everyone here just saw a great little magic trick on getting good content from a client. Just ask them about their business and record it, because you'll likely get everything you need right there, at least the main parts. And then you can hire Michelle and go from there with the SEO stuff.
Guess where that tip came from?
Was it?
It was you. Yeah.
You recorded it. Yeah.
You gave me that tip. You gave me that tip. I think we had gone through that exercise. I was complaining about what a horrible writer I was or whatever. And you were like, dude, you just talked about it for 5 minutes. And
that's right. Yeah.
Whatever. So It worked really good. It worked good.
So you did, we talked about that because you asked, like, I think you asked me, John, you're like, should I like penalize them? Should I charge them? And then you did something that was, you basically just lit a fire under him. Do you just want to kind of share what you did? Like, did you send a video? Were you just open and honest and just say like, listen?
Yeah, I tried everything, but what worked was, to kind of nudge him and say, I think I said something like, hey man, listen, at the end of the year, the prices are going to go up, there's some urgency here. We got to make sure this gets done, make sure it gets timely. I'm into the project now. I'm excited about it for you. All you got to do is give me the stuff to work with, and I'm going to give you an awesome website, man. You're going to dig it. It's going to be great. And I was just I never threatened him, or I didn't want to ever go down that road. But, when you start to talk money, especially, hey man, we got to get this done or else, I raise my prices every year. You don't want to get caught in that net. Then he was all about it.
Yeah.
Got me the stuff. And then from that point, it was all groovy.
And this is where understanding like DISC, the personality, different type stuff is really beneficial. I do encourage everyone to check that out at some point, just because it sounds like he was maybe more motivated by like feeling or excitement. Some people are going to be more motivated by money. Some people, if they're more dominant, sometimes they respond to more dominant, like, hey, I need this now. And then some people, if they're more cautious, they may need to hear like like, if we don't get this, here's what can happen. So there's some other strategies there, but either way, I love that you kind of just lit the fire on them. And it was a simple, did you have an actual like call with them when you talked about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I called him directly and I said, I just wanted to let him know there was some urgency. We couldn't just let this thing sort of simmer for 6 months.
Yeah.
Let's go. I had my foot on the gas. I wanted to go. I was excited about the project. So,
and did you tell them at all, like, if we don't get this, I've got other projects? You did say the pricing thing, your prices were going to go up, but did you highlight anything like that, or was it mainly just a matter of the price increase and the encouragement?
That was it. I never wanted him to feel like, because I don't think he was intentionally dodging me or anything like that. He was just really busy. He just had a lot of stuff going on. But I wanted to make sure that our relationship remained respectful. And, I was trying to be compassionate and helpful. The guy was, confused. And I know he was putting it off. He wasn't comfortable writing. He wasn't comfortable doing any of this stuff. So I kind of had to hold his hand a little bit through it. And so maybe put more time in it than I would have liked. But I got a great Google review. I got the guy's kind of my friend,
And it's a great site, man. I love the site. What can you
turn out good?
I forget what the URL is for that site. Can we share that?
It was called qualityonehomes.com.
That's right. I'll post this in the chat. John did a great site, a great job designing this one. Here we go. qualityhomes.com for everyone to check out. So well done. Got some custom imagery. And that's a great way to go. And I would say too, just remember for everyone who struggles with this, you can always offer to do stuff in phases and then help out with getting stock photography or like getting content written from somebody else. That way it's off the client's plate. They can pay for it and then, move forward. So it's always an option as well.
Josh, the other thing that worked good, one of the problems was photography, right? The guy had done a million projects, but he had really taken some crappy photos, with his phone or whatever. They weren't really reflective of his attention to detail or, the quality of his work. So in order to keep things moving, I've said, listen, man, I've got a stock photography library. Let's get some stock photography up there as placeholders while we find a real estate photographer to go in and take pictures. And then, so now I think all the photography on there is custom photography from a
I was going to say, I don't see any stock. Well, maybe
there might be one like, I think the flooring or something, or the people on the homepage, that one. But that's part of the maintenance plan project for him is to swap out that imagery, right?
That's fine. And an industry like that, sometimes there's legalities with getting a person on. Like he probably couldn't take a picture of his clientele unless they intentionally sent him a picture. So sometimes you need crafted stock photography in with real photos, which is fine, particularly for a blue collar type site.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great call, John.
That turned out good.
Christian did want to know, John, are you willing to come back in your elf outfit at any point?
For my peeps, of course I'm willing to, right?
You still have it?
You bet. Oh my God, yes. Anytime, you let me know.
Turn the AC on for that one. I know that was toasty. So, all right, John. Well, thanks for sharing that, man. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Josh.
Awesome, guys. All right. So those are some thoughts on scope creep. Mike had a really good question. He said, this is in the Q&A. Any official Q&As, questions you guys have, by the way, I'm going to probably miss them in chat. So drop them in the Q&A as we get ready to wrap this one up. Mike said, scope creep caused a recent client to fail on content and decided the homepage that's almost done is good enough for now. No idea if they're ever, or if they would ever come back to the full site later. Maybe this might be it. Any suggestions for a fee adjustment? Okay, so it sounds like, Mike, the problem is you did like had the full site ready to go as far as the plans and everything. And then if they fail on content, they just want to do the landing page or a front page. Trying to think, I had similar versions, of that, but I think we just reduced the site. We didn't have one that just went to like a one pager. What I would say, that's tricky. That's interesting. I didn't have that exact situation happening myself. So I would say in that, obviously what's tricky about that is they did sign on for it. So what I would say is, because you don't want to reduce the fee as far as like if they paid for a 10-page website and they decide to only go one page, well, they already invested in the 10 page. Now, if you took half and they're fine with paying that half just for the front page, then that's probably fine. I would roll with that, get them on your maintenance and hosting, and then say we can add to it in phases. You'll probably make more doing half of an investment for a 10-page site for a 1-page site than you would selling just a landing page site. However, the other option I would do is I would say, well, this was the agreement and I want to make sure we do this whole site for you. So why don't we just do this in a time period, like set constraints as far as how long this would go. Maybe instead of a typical 45-day window, maybe you bump it out to like 4 months, or you don't want projects to go too long, but you could potentially just give a constraint on that. Because again, they did, it would be like me paying for a new floor and then like them planning it all out, ordering the parts, and then deciding as they get going, you know what, actually just do the laundry room. The rest of it's fine. No other professional organization is going to do that. So the only time I would be okay with doing that is if they paid up front, they decided just the front page. And then, if you make $2,000 for 10 hours of work or 15 hours of work, I guess it would depend on the client too. I wouldn't advise that typically, but that's something you could consider. But yeah, if it's something like that, as far as a fee adjustment change, I would definitely not go down. I would just say adjust the constraints and limitations and just say, if we don't get the content by this time, and this should be in your contract, hopefully, where it's what you paid for this, that's it. If we don't get the content, that's on you. We're still owed this. And you could say, I could help out with some placeholder content for now. Even if you feel like that's going to save time in the long run, even though it might have some time investment with helping them with some content, it may be faster in the long run to do that just to get the project done. So hopefully that helps, Mike. That's an interesting one, man. That's an interesting one. All right, everybody. Well, hot dog, we're at an hour. Can you believe it? Hopefully everyone enjoyed this one. Hopefully everyone had a good chat. Thank you so much for everyone who sent in your wins and your messages and your challenges. I want to encourage you, if you haven't done so, again, don't ever feel afraid to message me. Hit me up with ideally your biggest challenge, because I'm really liking getting a feel for where everyone's at. And then instead of repeating myself over and over a one-on-one, what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a podcast out of it or a resource or something. So, well, awesome, guys. I think we're all set on this one. Hopefully everyone had a blast. Good to be back. Good to see everybody. I'll see everyone in the club. Keep on doing your thing. Keep at it, everybody. If you're dry on clients, don't worry. You're not alone. Just get out there. Throw everything on the wall. See what sticks. See what's working. Get out of your comfort zone. And I've said this to a couple of you via Messenger. I'll tell it to everybody. Just remember, when you're in a season of like getting clients and producing a lot and going, getting uncomfortable, it's just a season. You're not going to have to do that every day, every week, over and over and over. It's just a season, but you've got to get the momentum going. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. And I'll say this too. There are a lot of businesses out there and people who want to work with you and need your services. They just don't know about you right now. So you've got to get in front of them any way possible. Face-to-face is always the quickest ROI, but if you're going to do content, just remember intentional content. Don't waste your time doing Divi tutorials and little mini courses if your clients aren't going to take them. That's got to have the right strategy. So, all right, everybody. Hope everyone had an awesome, Wednesday. Have a good rest of the week. Cheers.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.